So, good evening, a very good evening to all of you. Today we are going to see a different type of question. This is not an opinion question actually. This is a hybrid question. We do have two questions here. So the situation is about the similarities of sceneries in places around the world nowadays. It was very different in the past. In the past, the sceneries around the world were different, and people used to travel to distant countries to see those. People used to travel just to see the differences from their home country. But now, if you see your place is very similar to another place, so it's almost the same or similar. Cities have become similar, towns have become similar. So there is something which we call a uniform scenery here. And what are the causes of these similarities? Now, the first question is, what made these similarities? Of course, there the differences of the cities or the towns or the places have become a memory. Right now, we do have much similar structure in cities and towns. Why do you think this happened? And is this advantageous? Is this now the similarity, if you see that this place is similar to this thing, do we have more advantages or do we have more disadvantages? Two questions are there. First of all, we have to explore the causes for this. The second, we have to go ahead with whether it has more merits or more demerits. Now, I have a model answer here. It's written. Let us go with the answer and assess whether this is fitting to the question. Unlike the past, yes, today, okay, the sceneries in different places across the world have become much similar. Yes. Yes, unlike the past, today the sceneries in different places across the world have become much similar. Yeah. It's exactly different. The situation is different. Unlike the past, today we have much similar places. The primary cause behind this is globalization. Okay, so we have directly exposed the reason as this is the reason, and this is globalization. And I think this uniformity discourages the enthusiasm of travelers. Oh, so the problem is mentioned here. So the question is, do the advantages outweigh the disadvantages or the disadvantages outweigh the advantages? Right now, we have come up with some disadvantages, a disadvantage. This uniformity discourages the enthusiasm of travelers. Oh, it means the writer is going to come up with more negative points. Okay, so I would suggest a small change here. I think this uniformity has more drawbacks, especially to the enthusiastic travelers. Okay, now I have made a small editing here. This uniformity has more drawbacks, especially to the enthusiastic travelers. I made a small edit. So it was written as it is, but I made fitting to the question. Do you think that the advantages outweigh the disadvantage, or the disadvantages outweigh the advantage? I said the disadvantages outweigh the advantages. Now, to begin, the world has transformed itself in a dramatic way after globalization was accepted by most countries. Okay, to begin, the world has transformed itself. Okay. In a dramatic way after globalization was accepted by most. Okay, fine, it's good. There were exchanges in the field of trade, health facilities, education, and engineering, to name but a few. Of course, this enabled people to choose the best. The impact has also become visible in case of planning the cities, towns, and designing special structures which attracts tourists. Now, when globalization became popular and accepted across the world, there were cultural exchanges, trade exchanges, health, education, engineering, all these levels of exchanges were there. So here we have some exchanges in the design of cities and towns. As the technology used and the style of construction became uniform, these places started looking similar to the visitors. Okay, so they have said globalization. So it has made it went to every nook and corner of the world and made the uniformity. The same way as it did for trade, the same way as it did in the case of health facilities, the same way as it did for education, engineering, it did in the town planning or city planning or other planning. So this is the reason. This is the reason globalization has made. So people chose the best, is it? Okay, let us assess this thing. This enable people to choose the best. This is the turning point. So globalization enabled people to choose the best. So they selected the best engineering techniques, the best architectural techniques. So we could find that buildings withstand earthquakes, buildings which withstand natural calamities, fire, all these things. There was some uniformity. When globalization has made its intrusion into the life of modern people, they started copying the health, the best of the health facilities, the best of the educational facilities, food, trade, everything, so as the structure of a building too, or a place too. So this is what the first paragraph says about. Now let's go ahead with the but let's go ahead with the advantages or disadvantages. When analyzing whether this uniformity brings more advantages or disadvantages, I would go for the second option just because I feel that every place should have its own identity. So I said I would go for the second option. That is disadvantages. Just because every place should have its own identity. When the identity of the place is lost, naturally people who try to learn and experience that distinct culture, traditions, and architectural styles will show less interest towards it. For example, many places in Asia are far different from the places in Europe. These diversities attract more people to visit these places and experience these. When these diversities fade, these places would lose their significance. Of course, now when we go with the identity, so we have our own tastes of food. We do have our traditional food. We love it. But there are globalization has made our food culture very different, entirely different in the past 2-3 decades. So we have become a global customer of food. We started consuming hamburgers, pizzas, sausages, instead of going ahead with the traditional food. So what made you distinct from the globalized world in case of food is that your traditional food. So if you more and more people start consuming the globalized food, that is the packed food, then you lose your cultural identity. So the appearance of your place, your town or city is distinct, should be distinct. It should be distinct. That shows your culture, that shows your history, that shows your tradition, everything. But when we make it similar, your identity is lost and everything will look very similar, and the significance of your place will be lost. And this is what we can say as the disadvantages. Now let's go with the positive side. We have a positive side. Uniformity is a type of standardization which helps the local inhabitants to upgrade their standards of living. So you can say that the best technology is used in the modern era, which can withstand natural calamities, fire, and all these things. So if you have made your city with wood, then you are at high risk to catch fire. So it's better to adopt the modern technology. This is the standardized technology. It's a type of standardization. So when you adopt the uniform appearance, and when this happens, the local people, the indigenous people, they feel that they are also a part of the global culture. Keep going. And this enables them to feel a type of uniformity among them. So they don't feel that they are entirely different, whether they are in Asia, whether they are in Africa, whether they are in North America. When this standardization occurs, they feel that they're living a life more or less similar to those countries or those areas. So it's a type of standardization. Now we have seen both the positive and negative sides. We have written more negative sides. And let's conclude here. To conclude, it's clear that the fundamental reason behind the similarity of the places is globalization. Globalization must have caused this thing. And I think in this case, it appears to be more negative. Okay. In this case, it appears to be more negative. Of course, you have said it. Of course, globalization made, bring about, has brought about the changes there, uniformity there, standardization there, which is needed to an extent. But if you cross the limit, you can see that your identity is lost. So if you are looking uh, similar, if your place is looking very similar, your identity which you have preserved in the past. See, for example, when people think about when people think about Paris, the first structure which comes to their mind is the Eiffel Tower, the Eiffel. So the picture of Eiffel will come to their mind just because of the uniqueness. So you do have similar structures in similar cities, which which are the identities of those cities and towns, and such things and such places should be preserved. This is what the essay is about. Thank you.